The observation deck of the celestial harmony stretched before Jackson like a cathedral of stars. Beyond the crystalline viewport, the Andromeda Galaxy spiraled in magnificent blues and purples, a sight that would have left any human breathless. But Jackson's attention wasn't on the cosmic wonder before him. It was fixed on the woman, no, the being, standing beside him. Commander Orla of the Valthurian Empire stood with the poise of someone born to command galaxies. Her skin shimmered with an iridescent quality that shifted between silver and pale blue depending on the light, a trademark of her species. Her eyes, large and luminous, held the depth of nebulae, and her features, while humanoid, possessed an otherworldly perfection that seemed almost sculpted by divine hands. She was beautiful in a way that transcended human understanding, yet carried herself with a warrior's discipline that commanded respect rather than mere admiration. Jackson had been aboard the Valthurian flagship for 3 weeks now, ever since humanity's first official contact with the galactic community. He was one of 12 humans selected as cultural ambassadors, representatives of a species that had only just discovered faster-than-light travel through sheer stubbornness and ingenuity. The galaxy had watched humanity's development with bemused interest, a species that refused to give up, that clawed its way to the stars through 2 world wars, countless conflicts and near-extinction events, only to emerge more determined than before. The Valthurians, ancient and powerful, had taken particular interest in humanity, not because humans were special in any conventional sense. Their technology lagged millennia behind, their lifespans were a fraction of most spacefaring races, and their physical capabilities were unremarkable. But humans possessed something the galaxy had rarely seen, an unbreakable will to survive and thrive against impossible odds. "You seem distracted tonight, Ambassador Jackson," Orla said, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The translator implant behind his ear rendered her words in perfect English, though he'd begun to recognize some Valthurian phrases on his own. "Just thinking," Jackson replied, turning to face her fully. At 6 feet tall, he was nearly eye level with her, unusual given that most Valthurians stood several inches taller. "About why you really brought us here." Orla's expression remained neutral, but Jackson had learned to read the subtle shifts in her bioluminescent patterns. A flicker of curiosity danced across her collarbone. "We brought you here to integrate humanity into the Galactic Council. This is no secret." "No," Jackson said carefully, "you brought us here because you're dying." The silence that followed was profound. Orla's luminescence dimmed slightly, and for the first time since they'd met, Jackson saw something crack in her perfect composure. "How did you?" "Your people are too perfect," Jackson interrupted gently. "Too refined. Your ships, your cities, your culture, everything is preserved, maintained, but nothing is growing. You're a civilization in stasis, Orla. And I've noticed something else. In 3 weeks aboard this ship, I haven't seen a single Valthurian child." Orla turned away, her hands clasping behind her back in a gesture Jackson had come to recognize as her default when processing uncomfortable truths. "You are perceptive, perhaps too perceptive for comfort." "It's a human trait," Jackson said with a slight smile. "We're good at noticing things, especially when we're trying to figure out how to survive." "Yes," Orla said softly. "Survival. That is why we sought out humanity, Jackson. Our species achieved biological perfection 2,000 years ago. We eliminated disease, extended our lifespans to millennia, and created a society without conflict or suffering. But in doing so, we lost something essential. Our birth rates declined. Our passion faded. We became static, as you so accurately observed. In another 5 centuries, there will be no more Valthurians." Jackson felt the weight of her words settle over him. An entire civilization, ancient and magnificent, slowly dimming like a dying star. "And you think humans can help?" "No, you can," Orla said, turning back to him. Her eyes shimmered with an emotion Jackson couldn't quite name. "Humanity's genetic compatibility with Valthurians is extraordinarily high, 95, 7%, higher than any species we've encountered. Our geneticists believe that human Valthurian offspring would possess the vigor and adaptability of humanity combined with the longevity and mental acuity of Valthurians. A hybrid species that could inherit both our legacy and humanity's fire. So this is about breeding, Jackson said, though his tone carried no judgment. It is about survival, Orla corrected. For both our species, humanity gains access to technology that will accelerate your development by thousands of years, protection from hostile species that would see you enslaved or destroyed, a place in the galactic community that would have taken you millennia to achieve on your own. And you get to continue existing. Yes. Jackson walked closer to the viewport, watching a small transport vessel glide past in the distance. The other ambassadors, they've been told this. They have, and they have been given a choice. Orla approached him, her footsteps soundless on the polished deck. You can choose any woman you want, human. We have prepared a selection of the finest Valthurian females, scientists, warriors, artists, leaders. Each has volunteered to bond with a human partner to bear hybrid children, to be the bridge between our civilizations. Jackson turned to look at her, really look at her. Orla met his gaze steadily, but he could see the vulnerability beneath her composed exterior. This proud commander, this woman who led fleets across the stars, was offering her species' future to a race they'd considered primitive just months ago. "And what about you?" Jackson asked quietly. "Are you one of these volunteers?" Orla's bioluminescence flickered rapidly, a reaction Jackson had learned indicated surprise or discomfort. "I am the fleet commander. My duty is to ensure this program's success, not to participate in it. I have responsibilities." "That's not what I asked." Orla fell silent, her luminescence settling into a steady, soft glow. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "No, I am not among the volunteers. My position makes such a choice complicated." Jackson took a step closer. In the starlight, Orla looked almost ethereal, a being from myth rather than flesh and blood. But he'd spent 3 weeks watching her work tirelessly to make the human ambassadors comfortable, to bridge the vast cultural gap between their peoples, to carry the weight of her civilization's future on her shoulders without ever showing the strain. "You asked if I've made my choice," Jackson said. "Yes, the selection ceremony is tomorrow. You will meet. I want you." The words hung in the air between them like a suspended note. Orla's bioluminescence flared bright, then dimmed, then flared again, a cascade of reactions playing across her skin like lightning across a summer sky. Her lips parted, but no sound emerged. Jackson watched her carefully, looking for any sign of rejection or offense. Instead, he saw wonder, confusion, and something that looked remarkably like fear. "That is not," Orla began, then stopped. She tried again. "I am not available for selection. There are others far more suitable who—" "I don't want suitable," Jackson said. "I want someone who stays up until 300 reviewing supply manifests to ensure the human quarters have Earth-grown food. Someone who learned to laugh at human jokes, even though her translator can't process half the wordplay. Someone who carries the weight of her dying civilization with grace, but still finds time to ask me about my family back on Earth." "Jackson." "Someone," he continued, his voice gentle but unwavering, "who looks at humanity not as a resource to be utilized but as people worth knowing, worth respecting, worth—" he paused, choosing his words carefully, "worth caring about." Orla's hands trembled slightly, a minute movement that spoke volumes from someone usually so controlled. "You cannot possibly understand what you are asking. The bonding process, the commitment required, the cultural implications." "I understand that you've spent 3 weeks treating us like equals when you didn't have to," Jackson interrupted. "I understand that when Ambassador Chen had a panic attack from homesickness, you sat with her for 4 hours sharing stories about your own family. I understand that you personally modified the gravity in our quarters because you noticed we were developing muscle strain. And I understand that when I asked you yesterday what gives you hope for your species' future, you didn't talk about genetic compatibility or strategic alliances. You talked about how humanity's children still dream of impossible things. A single luminescent tear traced down Orla's cheek, a sight Jackson suspected few had ever witnessed. "I am afraid," she whispered. "Of what?" "Of choosing selfishly, of allowing personal desire to compromise my judgment, of—" She met his eyes, and in them Jackson saw centuries of loneliness, "of hoping for something I convinced myself I could not have." Jackson reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he gently took her hand. Her skin was warm, with a texture like silk over steel. "What did you convince yourself you couldn't have?" "A partner who chose me not because of duty or strategic value, but because of who I am," Orla said. "Someone who sees beyond the commander, beyond the symbol, to the woman who fears failure and doubts herself and wants, desperately wants, to believe that her people's future can be something more than mere survival." "Then let me be that person," Jackson said. "Let me choose you, Orla, not because you're Valthurian, not because it serves some grand purpose, but because in 3 weeks you've shown me more kindness, more genuine interest in my people and my world than I've experienced from anyone in years. Because when I think about building a bridge between our species, I can't imagine doing it with anyone else." Orla's other hand came up to cover his, her touch reverent. "The other ambassadors will object. The Valthurian Council will question the appropriateness. There will be complications, political entanglements." "Humanity specializes in complications," Jackson said with a smile. "We'll figure it out together." For a long moment, Orla simply stood there, her bioluminescence pulsing in complex patterns that the translator couldn't interpret, but Jackson felt he understood anyway. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face, not the diplomatic smile he'd seen her wear in meetings, but something genuine and radiant and utterly transformative. "Together," she repeated as if testing the word. "Yes, I would like that very much." Jackson squeezed her hand gently. "So that's a yes, you'll let me choose you." Orla laughed, the sound like music. "I believe, Ambassador Jackson, that we are choosing each other. And perhaps that is the most human thing of all, to find hope and connection not through calculation or strategy, but through genuine regard for one another." "Sounds about right," Jackson said. "We're good at that too." They stood together in the starlight, two beings from worlds apart, united by something that transcended species or strategy or survival. Around them, the celestial harmony hummed with life, carrying not just the future of two civilizations, but the simple, profound truth that even in the vast darkness of space, connection could bloom where it was least expected and most needed. Tomorrow would bring challenges, questions from the Council, objections from traditionalists on both sides, the complex work of truly bridging two civilizations. But for now, in this moment, there was only Orla's hand in his and the quiet understanding that they had chosen something rare and precious, each other. And in the grand tradition of humanity, that choice, made freely and with full hearts, was the beginning of everything. End.